Anthony, welcome to Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. How are you? How are you doing, firstly?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Glad to be back after the holidays.
Indeed. We've had a few technical issues, but hopefully we're underway now. I've given you a very quick introduction, Tony, but if you could give the audio listeners and the viewers a very quick overview of who you are, what your role is, and then we'll get into it from there, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Tony Mire-Sluis. I'm currently head of global quality for operations in Gilead. I've been here for approximately 9 months and was formerly head of quality for AstraZeneca.
Excellent. Okay, so let's take it back then. Give us a flavor of the early days. Where did your journey start? How did you get into science? And then how did that evolve into quality?
Yeah, well, I can go way back to when I was at school, and science was always something that I loved doing, particularly in the sort of biological type area. And it's in a way been a red thread all the way through my career that I really love science and have tried to maintain my knowledge and expertise in those areas, particularly in the pharmaceutical industry. I always say having a science background really helps in running a quality organization. So I loved it so much. I went to college and studied science, immunology, and genetics at university, and then did a PhD in biochemistry. And after that, joined a government body that was half regulatory and half science, a bit like the Centre for Biologics that there is in the States, because I come from the UK. And after about 10 years in the government, actually working on approving the early days of recombinant technology for pharmaceuticals, I decided to move to industry. And that's really where my quality journey started. It was coming to the US to work at Genentech, and I was involved more in the clinical quality side of things in the analytical area. And then over the years, done various jobs in quality and ended up as the head of quality at AstraZeneca and now in Gilead.
Where did you go to university, by the way, in the UK?
It was in London.
London, yeah. And how did the move to the US with Genentech, how did that come about?
So I've been in the government for 10 years, and although it's fantastic because you get to see almost every dossier that comes in from a filing perspective. So you get to see a way load of different products, and you get to know a lot of companies. You get to see what was a good filing and a not so good filing. But after 10 years, the decision was, do you just remain in government for the rest of your career, or do I move and do something different? And I had good friends in industry, and they invited me over to come and see what it was like in the US, working from the sort of innovator industry side. And they convinced me. I came to see San Francisco and fell in love with it, and decided to make that move from the UK to the US, which was great.
You've stayed in San Francisco then all that time?
No, I haven't. So I was in I've moved around a lot actually in my career in the US. So I've been in some beautiful places. So I've been in San Francisco, Thousand Oaks, Boulder, Colorado, Washington, DC when I did my stint at FDA. Then I was on the East Coast with AstraZeneca in Gaithersburg, and I'm now back in California, and loving every minute of it.
Where's your favorite US spot?
Absolutely California. I started in California, became a fair weather person, and have decided this is where I'm going to stay.
Very good. So you've been with Gilead for nine months or so now?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Was AstraZeneca your first global quality role, or overseeing
yes.
quality?
So as head of quality. So in Amgen, I wasn't head of all quality, but I had a global role because I had sites in multiple countries, including Singapore and Ireland and places like that. But as head of quality, my first head of quality job was when I joined AstraZeneca 10 years ago.
Okay. So talk to us about, I suppose, coming into a role as global head of quality for a global pharma organization. You now versus you 10 years ago joining AstraZeneca. How do you differ as a leader? How do you differ as a quality professional? What are some of the things that really, I guess, make you the leader, the global quality leader that you are? It's not an easy job. You're inheriting large team, often coming into things that need to be changed and reshaped. So just paint us a picture of what that role looks like and entails.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I had a pretty large role in Amgen over time because I think I've been fortunate in my career to be able to move into different functions. And what tended to happen at Amgen was I'd join a function and keep the run I already had. So I think I had the longest title by the time I left Amgen of all the bits and pieces that I inherited. Because I had corporate quality, I had compliance, I had North America and Singapore and external quality. So that was a pretty broad role anyway. I think for me, the answer always is building the best team because you're only as successful as the team that you build, because you can't keep an eye on every single thing that's going on in a large global organization. So having real trusted direct reports that know what they're doing is extremely important. Now, saying that, I think I've always enjoyed trying to know as much as what's going on as is physically possible. Because that's what interests me is what's going on in the organization. But I think also when you come into a new company, a new role, it's really the listening piece. You have to do your due diligence. You have to get to know people because each role has been very different. I mean, Gilead is almost 90% CMOs and very few, we've only got 4 internal sites. Whereas AstraZeneca had like 32 external sites all over the world. So, you've got to know, and clearly culture's different. You've got to get to understand who's doing what is the culture of the organization, and clearly set up where you want to be. Where do you want to be as a quality organization, and bring the people along with you?
So those first 90 days in the job, how do you describe it? Is it very much just observing, listening, figuring out what the next 90 days kind of looks like, or the next beyond bit looks like?
It really is. I mean, you've got to take the time to understand who your people are, what the structure of the organization is. It never fails to amaze me that even in an industry as mature as ours is now, the structures can be extremely different. And, from that perspective, it's time to really embed yourself and for them to get to know you too. Because at the end of the day, when a new leader comes in, change is kind of expected. And frankly, I think people get a bit nervous, want to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. How do you go about that assessment, I suppose, in terms of the organization that you've inherited? How do you prioritize things?
I think priority really comes through are there any major issues that need to be focused on? Are there any potential areas of compliance or focus where I said, I've joined very good companies, so I haven't had to worry too much about things like recalls and things like that. That would be the original areas for me to focus on. Are there tangible, low-hanging fruit that would make an instant difference for the organization? But again, any areas that I would be concerned of as a head of quality.
Yeah, fine. Okay, so I asked at the start, just if you were to compare yourself 10, 15 years ago when you were, Amgen going into AZ, I think quality as an industry has probably changed a fair bit over the last 15, 20 years, how quality is perceived across the industry. And with that, leadership naturally changes and the need to be a strong leader and be able to sit across the business. How would you describe yourself 15, 10 years ago as a quality leader stepping into maybe, let's say, AstraZeneca versus now?
I mean, I think everybody grows in their careers, and I always say the leadership you're never done. Managing people is not an easy job. I have to say it's probably the most rewarding, but the most difficult piece of being a leader. But I think from my perspective, leading a global organization means you do get exposed to different cultures. And I think for me, when I was at Amgen at the time, it was quite US-centric. I mean, it had sites, I say in Singapore and in Europe. But then you move to AstraZeneca, which truly was global. I mean, almost a site in every country, or at least certainly every continent. And it's both a joy and an experience, but also a learning experience to mix with people from different cultures. People speak differently. The way they will open up about potential issues is different. And saying that, at the end of the day, I think you learn as the leader, everybody is an individual, and you can't, treat everybody in exactly the same way. You have to tailor your leadership to the person. But I think culturally, I feel I've grown from knowing what it's like to interact with folks in China or Japan or Australia or other countries around the world, which I think have helped me grow.
Are there any, when you look back at your childhood, your life, early life and stuff, were there any particular experiences, roles, whatever that tailored you or helped you expand your sort of cultural familiarity, or was it very much learn on the job in those early days?
I mean, I was fortunate that even though I was born in the UK, my mother was Dutch and my father was Belgian. And so we traveled to Europe quite frequently. And they all spoke multiple languages. So we would go to France and different parts of Europe when I was younger. So, it's great to be exposed to different cultures when you're young. And that's why I got the travel bug as an example, because I still to this day, love traveling, and getting to see different cultures, etc. So probably from an early part of my life, getting exposed to different countries and people was something that has shaped me as I am now.
Yeah. So you've said sort of listening, that ability to really understand people's challenges, what the situation is when you come in, obviously understanding different cultures to be able to effectively communicate across your global organization. Are there any other particular softer skills, let's call it, or traits, characteristics that you feel you're strong at that give you I guess, credibility coming into this sort of role?
Well, I think credibility comes from being authentic and being yourself. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given is, Tony, you got to be yourself. Trying to be what other people would like you to be from a corporate perspective doesn't usually work. And there have been a couple of periods in my career where the company itself had a vision of what a leader should be and kind of was trying to push everybody into that mold. And that was probably the least enjoyable part of my career. Now, you can't go completely crazy, but being yourself, I like to laugh. I like to have fun. I like to be me. I'm more of an open book type person. You always have to have the corporation behind you, but trying to be something that you're not, I don't think you're usually successful, and it's hugely energy draining. So for me, it's knowing who I am and being who I am has always been, I think, something that then means that people respect me and interact with me on a higher level than it would be if I just see you as some SVP corporate senior guy.
Yeah. At what stage did you was there a realization in your career when that sort of transition happened and you started to realize, well, no, I want to be myself. I don't enjoy not being authentic and true to myself?
I think it was when I moved more into actually the quality organization, because say my early days in industry when I was at Genentech and Amgen was very scientific. It was very lab based, running experiments and that sort of stuff, doing clinical samples and that sort of thing. So it was very much me with like-minded science people. Then as the group grew, it became a different variety of people, QA people, QC people, central quality people, systems people, where you weren't just your like versus like scientists talking together. I had to be more of a varied personality and leader. And clearly, the bigger your group becomes, you have to gain those different skills of delegation, of strategy, of planning. When you're talking to a group of 40 people, it's very different than talking to a group of 1,000. And I think that's where I had to mature my style as a leader over time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I always, it's one common theme I think when I'm doing these podcasts is that authenticity piece. It's about being yourself. And like you said, it's not enjoyable if you're trying to be someone else in a role
Mhm.
that you're doing. Right. So you've stepped into the global head of quality role at Gilead. You're 9 months in. Tell us just a bit about the, after you've done that sort of listening phase, figuring out where maybe the gaps are, or some of the things that need to be changed. How do you go about that sort of reshaping the culture, the systems, whatever it may be? How do you sort of start that prioritization process and getting the building blocks in place?
Yes, I mean, I've always been fortunate. I've joined really good companies, so it's not as though one's coming in to go, it's all broken, I need to fix everything. So, you come in with that presence of, what do I bring to the organization? I'm a new leader. What do the staff need? And I think, my first 90 days, that was really the philosophy of the discussions I was having was what, if I like the term, if I had a magic wand to make your life easier, maybe more efficient, more fun, more interesting, what would it be? And getting that feedback was really the most useful piece of me starting my journey in any of the companies when I joined was the people at the ground floor, hands-on in our systems and processes doing the day job. They know what works well and what doesn't work well. And so talking throughout the layers in the quality organization has always been the most valuable to me. And there you start identifying, oh, look, digital is something that, as you say, what's changed in our industry? It's all about digital. Is what digital methods, ways of working, technology can we introduce that can remove the less value added work, the less interesting work, that then can drive efficiency and allow quality professionals to use their brain to be able to think and deal more proactively than typing a lot of stuff into Excel sheets or trying to release a batch by looking into 6 different systems. Those are the things that caught me immediately because, frankly, that's the biggest opportunity in our business at the moment.
Let's talk a bit more about that. I was going to come on to the digital side of things a bit now that we're on it. So that's those conversations or that realization or identification, does that start with the conversations with your current direct reports and filtering that down and identifying, right, what's taking up a lot of your time? What are your frustrations? Is that the sort of starting point of it all?
It was actually the other way around. It was starting from the hands-on folks and working my way up. Because the people that work day to day in our systems, they're the ones that feel the pain if something hasn't been designed properly or the processes weren't created properly. Because one of the things I've learned over the years is if you take an old clunky system and digitalize it, you just got an old clunky digital system. Digital, doing automation and stuff will not help if you don't fix the process first. And the people that know how to fix the process are the ones working in it.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that are going to know what is the piece that takes forever. Are we having too many checkpoints in this thing? Where's the areas of efficiency that we could implement? You could then create the process and then you digitalize it. And that is something that we're doing at the moment in Gilead.
So just from a very practical and granular sense then, when you're speaking to the guys at the coalface on the shop floor, for example, how does that look? So I'm assuming you're not going around individually talking to every single person, or are you? Or is it ad hoc conversations? Are you having town halls with them? What does it look like in practice?
I mean, it's a mixture of both. I mean, when you've got an organization, it's 1,000 people. Clearly, you can't speak to everybody. So it's a mixture. So it'll be, little group meetings. I love doing Gemba, so actually getting on the floor. So visiting the QC labs, chatting to the analysts, that sort of thing, going to the systems group and speaking to them. And then clearly, when I first joined, within the first 3 weeks, I did a town hall to introduce myself, introduce what I was thinking, and then telling people I will be coming around to all the sites and to all the groups and asking your feedback. So people were being prepared to know, hopefully, Tony wants to hear from us. here's our chance to really make a difference. Because I prefer, and I always use these words, I want you to shape your future rather than me doing it to you. Encouraging people to be part of that journey, rather than be told, oh, Tony's coming in, he's got a vision for this system, this system, this system, and it's just going to be rolled out to you. People need to be part of that process because, as I say, they know better than I do how lot release works in this company versus what other companies do. How do we work, as I say, with external CMOs and contract labs? I don't know that coming into a company. They got to be the ones that tell me how things are working.
You mentioned right at the start, obviously, it starts with the people and having the right team. When you're coming into a role like you have done, a lot of the time there will be some changes, maybe a bit of a reorganization, maybe some uncomfortable conversations. Where does that, when does that, how does that reorganization process look? And how do you decide what the key roles that you need, at the top reporting into you? How do you decide that?
Well, I mean, part of that comes from experience is, understanding. So I sit on a chief quality officers group, which is the top 25 pharma CQOs. We talk a lot about this, about the structure of our organization, what works, what doesn't work. Clearly I've been in now 4 major pharma companies to see how that works. And then through my friends and colleagues, we just talk about it, about what seemed to be working. So you kind of have those key roles that you really need to set up. And, I've always been fortunate in my organizations that when I come in, the people have been really good. And I haven't had to do, I would say, major personnel changes.
Yeah.
Organizational structural changes of what's being done where are probably more of the things that I've done. External quality, internal quality, central quality, digital, whatever. Those are the buckets that I like to have in my organization. So you get like-minded people in the same group.
Okay, say that again, just those organizational buckets, so that the ones that you said you like to have in control.
Yeah. So there's internal quality, which is your internal sites.
Yep.
There's external quality, which is the group that deals with the CMOs, our suppliers, our affiliates, all outward looking. Central quality is where all the systems and processes, things like automation and all that stuff live.
Yeah.
Then there's digital, which I never used to have in the past, that now I'm creating as a digital quality organization because it's so central. And that's where things like AI and the electronic quality systems and computer validation, all that stuff all live.
Yeah.
So I have my compliance and audit groups, and my head of compliance is a separate organization. And then I have a advocacy and regulatory intelligence group. So they're like reaching out for my group to the outside world, but also pulling in all that information that comes through the regulators, inspections, and that sort of stuff to feed into the organization. So those are the major buckets I have.
So out of those buckets, obviously the digital and AI function of quality is one, the newest one, I'd imagine. How do you go about? You touched on it there, but I suppose it's building a vision for digital and AI. Is that the start of it? And how does that? What is your vision for digital and AI, if you can share?
Yeah, I mean, my vision is what I want to do for the organization is to make people's jobs when they come into work enjoyable, allowing them to use their brain and making a difference, and not firefighting. So it is that move, and we use that term, moving from reactive to proactive. I don't want people to be constantly dealing with deviations. I mean, I have to say, I always like a good investigations because it's always interesting, but that means that lots aren't getting out the door to patients in a timely manner. So how can we employ in our quality systems? I mean, we use an automated electronic quality system like most companies do. But again, it only works as well as the process you put in it. Using digital to allow easy searching of data, to allow easy streamlined change controls that are, risk-based, change controls, different workflows, that sort of thing. Connecting systems together so that my lot release people can go into one system and see everything they need all in one place.
Yeah.
And if everything's got a green light on it, you just push a button to release.
Yeah.
So it's really about driving that sort of efficiency. And of course, artificial intelligence can do all sorts of things these days.
And do you find there's any sort of change resistance in not just only in Gilead, but in as digital and AI become more important part of quality leaders? Do you think generally people are slow to uptake it in the quality world?
What I would say is which is always interesting, and it's nothing specific to Gilead or any other companies that we've worked at, it's specific to people, is people, even though they may not always enjoy the system they're using now, when you offer them a new one, it's a change. And people get used to doing what they're doing. So for me, it really is, you have to put your money where your mouth is and showing people the benefit. And them being part of that journey. Resistance to change is usually, if you look at and I'm a big proponent of the 8 steps in change management, is if you don't bring people along at the beginning, the whole change journey is much harder. And involving them in the here's why we're doing it. We're not doing it for change's sake. There will be advantages at the end of it. And you're part of that process makes it a lot easier. So, I've talked to people where we've given them a new system from one that they hated. And they'll actually tell me, you know what, Tony, I really didn't like the old way of working, but I knew how to do it. Now for the next 6 months, I'm learning something new and it's different. And I'm a bit worried and I'm a bit more nervous. But if you can get them over that little hump of difference, then they love it.
Yeah, that's where the development and the job satisfaction comes in even more so.
Exactly. Resistance is more resistance to change as opposed to we're going to make life easier for you. And how can you bring that earlier in the process?
Yeah. So how would you summarize your role in the overall adoption of that new technology to new digital? Is it creating the vision, rolling that out to your direct reports and just driving it continuously, making sure that the change processes are embedded in the organization?
So it shouldn't be Tony's vision.
Yeah.
It should be the organization's vision. So, management or leadership 101, when you come into an organization, is to look at your mission and vision and go, are we all aligned of where we want to go? There's no point in me having a vision that the organization is not interested in or cannot get behind. So again, to repeat myself, you've got to do it from the ground up, asking for help from those in the front lines going, what can we do to make your life easier? Yeah. And then they come up with the systems. They come up with, if we did a quick close change control that's low risk, that doesn't need multiple signs off, that will really help me in my job. And I go, great, write that up and we'll send it off to the digital folks and see how we can implement it.
Yeah.
Tony, I spend 2 hours every day typing data from our CMOs into our internal systems. And it's really laborious and you can make typos. We can create a bot that can automatically lift that information and directly put it into our systems. It's, again, listening to people about where the areas of need are.
I think that's one of the key things I picked up from this conversation. We've obviously spoken before, but I guess when you do these types of podcasts, you go into detail and you're very much a man of the people, and that is shown by sort of your authenticity, your willingness to interact and learn from the people on the shop floor right the way through the organization, which I think a lot of good quality leaders do that, right? It's about communicating with the shop floor, but I think sometimes it's overlooked, and having that approachability so that you're not just sitting in your ivory tower is very important, as you know. But you strike me as that, that the antithesis of someone that does that really well.
Yeah, and that's one of the joys of doing what I do is people. I love working with people. I love talking to people and making a difference. At the end of the day, look, quality has a role, which is to protect patients and the reputation and compliance of the company, which of course I've got to do. If I'm not successful at that, then I get kicked out. But But on the other hand, I run an organization, and in a way, it's like if you're a family person responsible for your children, I'm responsible for the well-being of my staff. I
Yeah.
take it to heart if somebody's not happy. I won't tolerate a management style within my organization where people don't feel comfortable to speak up, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's how I want to do my job and live my life, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm conscious of time, Tony, but a couple more sort of final questions just to recap things. When you look back at your career, and I'm sure you've still got plenty more to achieve, but what are some of the key things that you feel most proud of?
For me, I think it really is leaving a legacy.
Okay.
Is developing people, as I say, is probably one of the most rewarding things you can do. So when I look back and see the folks that were in my organization, the heights they've reached in their careers, and the fact that they do enjoy what they do is extremely rewarding for me. Some of it also is when in my career, I've always tried to be involved in like regulation setting and setting standards. And so when I look back and look at things like I was always really interested in immunogenicity, which is one of the things that, when you're in the biopharmaceutical industry was very important. Some of the white papers myself and my colleagues wrote in those days, we're talking 20 years, are still the standards that people follow now. To be able to look back at that and see, oh, there's my name on that paper, and wow, didn't we make a difference, is something I feel very proud of. And want to continue doing is shaping the organization and teaching newcomers to learn from the experience that I've had over the years.
I was going to ask you, what are you most excited about, sort of the future of the industry and where your career goes? And I'm guessing from what you've said, it's continuing that legacy and continuing to develop people and build people's careers. Does that sort of sum up the future for you, what you're excited about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I say, look, what is the biggest game changer is going to be artificial intelligence. It's going to be the game changer of all our lives moving forward. Again, we're thinking about what regulations are we going to put in place around AI, and what standards are we going to have to put in place? How do we implement it in a way that is GMP, so to speak? To be a part of that, again, I'm looking forward to being involved in that next way of working moving forward.
If there's a young aspiring quality leader listening to this now and they're wondering what they need to do, high level to eventually become a global quality leader in a large pharma organization like yourself, what are some of the 2 or 3 of the most important things that they should be doing right now?
So at the top of the list would be networking. Networking is so important. It sounds like, well, that's a strange word. Why would Tony use that? It's making sure that you have a broad network of people that you interact with, that you don't silo yourself in one part of the organization, is reaching out to different parts of the business when you're in a company. And if you do go to a conference, it's to seek out people who you may want to learn from or you may want to interact with, because that networking has been the highlight of my career from a perspective of, if I see an opportunity to be able to go to somebody and say, you know what, I'm interested in that. They know who you are. They know what your background is. It makes it so much easier than just seeing a blank CV of somebody you've never heard of. So for me, it's networking. It's getting out there. It's trying to give talks if you can. Go out to a conference and give a talk. What better way for people to see who you are and interact with you? I love giving talks. So networking is extremely important. Another one is knowing yourself. What is it that excites you? What is it that drives you? I have had people who said, Tony, I want to be a head of quality. Give me the X, what you get there. It's like that won't work. It's got to be, what is it you enjoy? Now, if you're going to be a head of quality, the broader career you've had, I think it really helps. So, to have been in the various groups in quality, I think really helps from an experience perspective, because at the end of the day, to be able to understand what goes on in the compliance auditing space, versus a central quality space versus what goes on day to day in a manufacturing plant. In my career, I've had those experiences, and it helps me, when we talk authenticity, for people to go, oh, Tony actually knows what he's talking about, rather than, oh, he's some high up, strategic guy that really doesn't know what goes on day to day.
Yeah.
So those would be the things I would say: networking, knowing yourself, and broadening your career to try different things.
Awesome. Three very quick fire questions just to finish things off, Tony. Man, I've really enjoyed this conversation. First question: who's been the biggest influence in your career? And this can be personally or professionally.
From a biggest influence, I think would probably be one of my school teachers. He was the one that really set me on the road to loving biology and loving science. He was so passionate about it. He drove me in that direction.
Awesome. What's been the best piece of advice you've received in your career?
Which I mentioned, was be yourself.
Very good. Final question. Your younger self, what would you tell him, as advice goes?
I would have said, looking back, do not spend 10 years in the UK government. Get out into the world a bit earlier than that. I loved it, but the last 5 years was on more of a treadwheel, and just take your opportunities. Know when the time is to move on.
Tony, thank you so much. I've loved this conversation. I really appreciate your time. We've had a couple of technical issues, which hopefully we've overcome. But yeah, thanks so much, and best of luck for what you're building at Gilead and for the year.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I hope that you got value from it, whether you're starting your career in quality or if you're at the top of your field. Today's episode was brought to you by RX Group. I'm the founder of RX Group. We are a pharma and biotech recruitment organization focusing purely on quality assurance. We recruit consultants and senior level permanent quality professionals into the pharma and biotech industry. If we can support you, whether that be in a hiring capacity or if you yourself are looking for work, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn, visit our LinkedIn page where you can subscribe to the podcast, and visit our website, www.rx-group.io, to find out more about us. See you soon.